Sure, I'll punt my way through this and I'll take any help I can get. We open
All
with
right.
so the notice of non-discrimination, just as a reminder to all, you're invited to participate in our transportation planning process, regardless of your race, color, national origin, including limited English proficiency, religion, creed, gender, ancestry, ethnicity, disability, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, veteran status, or background. And as a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. Okay, the meeting is opened at 2:10 p.m. on May 22nd. For the record, do we want to do those new introductions and then we'll do a roll call?
Sure. So I would just like to introduce everyone to Wayne Jeunesse. Wayne is our new representative from the Lowell City Council. Wayne, do you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Sure. Thank you. Hi, as mentioned, my name is Wayne Jeunesse. I'm on the Lowell City Council. I represent District 4, which is downtown. Blake is actually my neighbor. And it also includes a stretch of land that goes all the way up to Drake-It and back Central and the various other neighborhoods in and around. And I'm really happy to be here. I find transit and things like that very transit planning and everything else very interesting and intriguing. So I look forward to being able to pitch in and do what I can to help here. So thanks for having me.
Welcome, Wayne. So then at this point, I believe we normally call the roll.
Yes. So Derek Cravat is not yet here. We'll announce when he enters. With Brian Fallon.
Brian Fallon representing Highway Administrator Gulliver.
All right. Jane Wellman.
Chair NMMPO here.
Okay. Pat Wolters.
Here.
Tom Bomo notified me that he would not be able to be here. Karen Pulio.
Here.
And Wayne Jeunesse. All right. And we have quorum.
Okay, great. So we'll move then to item 2 on our agenda, which is our opportunity for comments from MPO members, community stakeholders, and the public. Any public comment related to an item before the MPO? Anybody virtually? No? Okay.
We have Andrew Jennings.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yes, I'm not sure whether it's for this meeting or tonight's meeting. We have learned a lot more about the North Billerica Station history, given its current problem of being in a state of disrepair. LRTA went through its file and gave me an inch-thick packet on Monday, which I was able to go through yesterday. And we know that now that the funds for the grant funds for rehabilitation came from ICE-T funds and CMAQ fund. They did not have anything in their files about responsibilities that were incurred as a result of receiving the grants, and we're still looking for that, and anything that people could do on that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Action item taken by NMCOG on that?
We can certainly follow up with Mr. Jennings, and of course, you may also attend tonight's meeting, which is a council meeting, and say the same.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny.
I just want to note that we have a person from Representative Elliott's office also just joined while Mr. Jennings was speaking and may wish to provide comments during this public comment time. They had notified us previously of such.
Thank you very much. So the floor is open still for public comment. Hearing none, I'm going to close the floor to public comment at this time, and we'll move forward to our approval of the minutes from the April 24th, 2024 meeting.
And Karen, I do want to note that Derek Cravat is now here from MassDOT, so I think we can.
Cool.
Transition.
Yeah.
All right.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Karen, thank
Very
you.
welcome.
All right.
turn the chair over. So yeah, looks like the minutes being shown. Ask for a motion and second to approve the April 24th meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments on the minutes?
Just a quick comment from me. I'd like to just be marked as present on this vote, just because I haven't had a chance to review the meeting or the minutes yet.
Thank you. Go ahead and call the roll.
All right, Derek Cravat,
Yes.
Brian Fallon,
Yes.
Jane Wellman,
Yes.
Pat Wojcik,
Yes.
Karen Pulio,
Yes.
and Wayne Janess noted himself as
Present.
present.
Yep.
Thank you.
Going to the next item, which is project status report.
Hi, to Paris, District 4 Planning. We had, most of the changes this month are just to the ad dates for when the projects are scheduled to be advertised. We have 6/13, 2/13, Bedford, Billerica, Chelmsford, Tingsboro, bridge preservation of 41 bridges in the Route 3 corridor. That's new, the new ad date is June 15th, 2024. That's just moved back from May of 2024. 6/13, 120, Tewksbury Bridge replacement, North Street over I-485. That is now April 2029. It did not have a definitive date before. 6/10, 719, sorry. Burlington to Tingsboro pavement preservation on Route 3. That is December 2024. It was scheduled for November of 2024. 608, 816, Lowell Drake and Methuen resurfacing and related work on Route 110. Scheduled for August 31st, 2024. It was scheduled in May of 2024. 607, 401, Chelmsford traffic signal installation at Route 110 and Route 495, 2 locations. That is now scheduled for February 6th, 2027. It was scheduled for September of 2025. 607, 887, Lowell Rourke Bridge replacement. The dollar values that we have for federal participating and total contract costs have gone up. Up to 243 million for federal participating and 229 million for total contract cost. 609, 317, 317, Chelmsford improvements on Chelmsford Street, Route 110. That's scheduled for December 18th, 2027. It was December 6th, 2025. And 608, 227, Billerica Yankee Doodle Bike Path Construction Phase 1, scheduled for September 30th, 2024. It was scheduled for August 31st of 2024.
Thanks, Tim. Any questions for Tim?
I just have one question on 607, 401. With that change to the ad date to 2027, it doesn't impact the tip year at all?
No, I can address this. So the tip column on this is the tip year as programmed in the active 24 to 28 tip. You should see for that project though, that in the development tip program, it aligns with the ad date that's been updated.
Great, thank you.
So when we look at the tip development item later, everything should align with this current year.
Thank you.
We have anyone from District 3 online? Thanks. And move on to next item, which is fiscal year 2024 Unified Planning Work Program Adjustment 1.
Great. So that's me. All right. Since we have a lot of people in the room who are maybe not familiar with MPOs and UPWPs and TIPs and MTPs, I just wanted to provide a little bit of context setting because today we are talking about our current Unified Planning Work Program. We're talking about our proposed Unified Planning Work Program for 2025. And we're also talking about our Transportation Improvement Program for 2025 through 2029. So I just wanted to provide an overview of like what these documents really are and how they all relate to each other. We also, last year, for members of the MPO who were here, you approved our Metropolitan Transportation Plan in Vision 2050. So that plan is our sort of overarching document that's like a vision or a framework for the next 25 to 50 years for the region. It's a document that we create or update every 4 to 5 years. And that plan, therefore, informs how we invest in our roadways, how the state invests in our roadways, and how we as an MPO invest in our roadways. And it also informs how our MPO staff, our transportation staff, and some of our land use, housing, and economic development staff, the kind of activities that they plan on a year-to-year basis. So the tip, which we'll talk about later, is really how, and what was just presented now by Tim, was just, it's looking at how we're investing those federal dollars into improvements in our roadway system. And that's something that we update every year, but it has a 5-year time horizon. Our UPWP, or our Unified Planning Work Program, is basically it's our work plan as staff. It's what we say that we're going to work on every year from year to year. It includes tasks and studies and plans. It might include monitoring existing conditions or looking back on things that happened to assess whether they were productive or effective. And it also includes more like midterm and longer range planning. And that's a 1-year document that we develop in the spring. We bring to the MPO for approval. And then with MPO approval, it becomes effective in October. And that can be adjusted or amended throughout the year. If you hit next, these are also informed by the next slide, which is our public participation program. So the PPP is really how we engage with our communities, and that method or how we engage informs each one of those plans as well. We are proposing to adjust our current UPWP. This is pretty common among MPOs on an annual basis as you get midway or 3/4 of the way through the year. And the key reasons for these proposed adjustments, not just for our staff here, but what happens in other MPO staff, is because you have staff turnover from year to year. Your project priorities might shift a little bit. You may see certain things like ad hoc activities that you can't plan for in spring of the prior year. You may see those start to pop up. Like this year, we've had an overwhelming number of MEPA reviews. And then also, as you get 5 to 7 months into a federal fiscal year, you have a little bit more clarity about the subtasks. You know, we're writing this in March and the work doesn't begin until October. And when we get to a certain subtask, it might not be until April or May of the next year. So that sort of requires that we may have a little bit more clarity about what a community wants if we're doing a planning study for them. And then we might need to adjust the budget accordingly. But this is to make sure that our staff are spending and being as most productive as possible to ensure that we're completing tasks and deliverables by September of this year. Next slide. If anybody has questions, I can dig into this a little bit more, but just task by task, what we're looking to do. Hit next, please. For task 1, we're shifting funding from public participation. We're going to start our public participation plan this summer, but we don't feel that we need the entire amount that's remaining there. So we're shifting that into management of the 3C process. And then in the next slide, shifting some funding from TIP program activities because we are nearly complete with the planning of our current TIP or our next year's TIP, moving some of that funding into Title VI because federal certification, some of our corrective actions, we want to make sure that we're able to respond to those and have enough time for staff to do that. Overall, there is no shift in how much budget we have allocated to this task. It's just moving money around from subtask to subtask. If you hit next. We're doing something similar in task 2. So, you know, we're onboarding with a new traffic counting season. And we also know that we have basically reviewed and the MPO has adopted the performance measures that they're going to be reviewing and adopting this year. So we want to move some funding from that into our traffic counting. And then in task 3, if you hit next, we're moving money from freight planning, next. And the EV study and ACANAV, and this is regarding that sort of clarity around tasks. So I think some things that we had described in our prior UPWP, we know now that we probably don't need as much funding for that. And so we want to move that into our sustainability, livability, and climate change. We've had staff turnover in that role. And we've had to spend substantial time onboarding new staff, and we've also, like I mentioned, had more MIPA reviews than ever before. And so we want to make sure that we have adequate time remaining until October for that staff and those activities. And next. Similarly, we're moving funding from our regional transportation plan. We're making some minor changes, which will come back to the MPO. And we're also moving money from our bicycle pedestrian planning into local technical assistance. We're going to do a scope for a bike ped plan. This is something that came up in federal certification. We're going to do a scope for that with the intent, as you'll see in our next proposed UPWP, to do an actual bike ped plan in the next federal fiscal year. But we don't need that full 38,000 in bike ped planning. So we want to shift it to be more responsive to communities that still need additional assistance with MBTA communities, transit-oriented development, and doing additional late year work on studies and activities. And again, just like with the other plans, we're not changing the amount of budget. We're just kind of shifting it around from subtask to subtask. There is a memo that was sent to everybody here. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but this is just an informational notice that we are going to be moving this budget around. I don't believe, because it's an adjustment, I don't believe this requires a vote of the MPO unless the MPO wishes to refer to it as an amendment.
Right. So I think the threshold is 25% of it. So if it is, it might be safe to take a vote. So if we get any questions from federal partners or others, just to make sure that it's documented that the MPO did approve it. And then work with the own process together by them, have a paper trail. So we can take a vote, but first, just open it up to questions. And ask them. In this chart is one question, the post adjustment column, is that? What is that?
So that is basically our remaining budget. That's the third column there, or the column that says remaining budget. That is how much funding we have remaining in those tasks and subtasks.
It's that plus.
Our proposed adjustment is in the next column, and then that would be the amount that is available post adjustment.
Great.
I think since Master reviews the invoices for this, if you can just make a version of this where the post adjustment sum is to the total task amount as well. That would be
Sure.
perfect.
Other questions? So we can then take a vote if that's okay, and just, again, just to document it, for federal partners. I'll ask for a motion and second to approve this UPWP adjustment as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the adjustments.
Second.
You need a second?
Second.
Yeah, second. I thought it was seconded. Okay.
Okay, motion having made it seconded, go ahead and call the roll.
All right, Derek Carrot,
Yes.
Brian Fallon,
Yes.
Jane Wellman,
Yes.
Pat Wojcik,
Yes.
Karen Pulio,
Yes.
Wayne Janess.
Yes.
All right, motion approved. Thank you.
Everyone. The next item, which is the next year's fiscal year, UPWP.
So I'm gonna talk a little more. So we did send you a stack of reading. The first bulk of that stack of reading that we sent to you was our proposed work plan for the next federal fiscal year. So I'm not gonna dig into all the context of each individual page, but I do want to talk over the timeline for UPWP adoption. The goals, this is kind of an iteration of what we've presented at previous meetings. The overall budget, kind of an overview of a document, like how to read the UPWP, like how we've restructured it this year, and then any discussion or questions. So next slide. Just as a reminder, here we are. We basically started this process back in January of this year. We presented last month to you a list of proposed tasks and talked about how that comported with what we heard from our federal certification review. If the MPO today votes to release this for a public comment, then we will have a public meeting at the beginning of June, and we'll bring any public comments received and any MassDOT comments back to the MPO. at our June meeting, and then that would, if it is approved by the MPO, then we would submit that to the state and it would get federal approval, and then it would become our work plan in October 1 of next year. Next slide. So again, when we did our work plan, and when we did our UPWP last year, we had not yet completed Envision 2050. And so one of the things we wanted to do this year was to make sure that in each of our tasks and subtasks, we were working toward advancing the goals that are laid out in Envision 2050. Next slide. We also, and this we presented last month as well, which is thinking about reorienting the tasks a little bit so that they're kind of following more of a planning process, which is, thinking about how we're maintaining the 3C process, which kind of encompasses all of these areas of work, but then starting with communication engagement, working through updating and maintaining our plans, monitoring our existing network, and then starting to advance projects so that our communities can prepare projects or do studies that will help them understand if they want to pursue design to get them onto the tip. Doing more long-range interdisciplinary planning, which we currently do, so that really hasn't changed. And then another activity that we currently spend a lot of time in is working with the LRTA and other transit providers across the region on strengthening our regional transit system. We've taken these 7 task areas and we've also cross-referenced them with federal planning factors and federal planning emphasis areas to make sure that we're addressing the requirements from the federal government, as well as addressing the needs that are laid out and the goals that are laid out in our Envision 2050 plan. Next. And so our total program funds, our budget that we are working with, between metropolitan planning or PL funds, 80% of those are provided by the federal government. There's a 20% match from MassDOT. The same is true for Section 5303 funds, which are from Federal Transit Administration. Those two combined are the bulk of our contract with MassDOT. And so that is $1,123,832. That is the bulk of what we are trying to program here. And that's how we're programming how staff are going to spend their time. That's our direct costs, our indirect costs, and any potential consultants or expenses. We also have a contractor. We currently have a contract with the Lowell Regional Transit Authority, and we're aiming to renew that in September for $65,000. So that also augments that, and part of our PL funds provide the 20% match to that LRTA contract of $65,000. And then we, subject to MassDOT approval, we're basically requesting to use deobligated PL funds. These are funds that have sort of accrued over the last 3 years on specific consultants or direct costs. But that again is subject to MassDOT approval. So there's a formal process we'll need to go through for that. Next slide. When you look through the document, there's an introductory area, which really describes what the UPWP is about. And the federal funding and the types of funding that go into funding the work of MPO staff. But then the second half of the document in section 2, we outline each of the 7 task areas. And so when you're looking at this document, the way to read it is really, we've got a task area. If there's a lead staff member who's sort of managing the entire task, we have that person identified up top. We talk about the task purpose, its relationship to Envision 2050 goals and targets, and then activities or accomplishments from the prior year. Then we break into the various subtasks. These are all sort of under the umbrella of the task. And that describes the various activities that we're proposing under each subtask, what the products will be, and then really providing some clarity about task completion, dates and schedule. And at the end of that section on a various task, we're describing what staff are working on it and what percentage of their time will go into that task and the overall budget for the task. We really see the UPWP both as communication and clarity to our constituents, to the state, to our federal partners, as the work that we are going to be doing, but also as a document or a manual for staff to kind of refer to and say, hey, what am I actually supposed to be working on? And what did we promise that we were going to get done? So that as you're looking through the document, that's really how we've laid it out. Next. I put these up here just in case anyone has questions. I can go back to it. But the 7 tasks, I've already described them. This is really the budget breakdown per task. Pretty much task 1 through, in the next slide here. Tasks 1 through 5 are really almost exclusively transportation and mobility focused. Task 6 is where we start to introduce work that is at the intersection of transportation, mobility, housing, land use, economic development, climate resiliency, and whatnot. And then in task 7, again, we're looking at our relationship with our regional transit planning. Next slide. And finally, there is a very long page in there with a lot of numbers. I'm happy to answer questions about this as well, but this is just how we've allocated the overall budget and how that breaks down for those metropolitan planning funds or FTA 5303 funds, the combined funding, and then where we are dedicating our complete streets funding. We're required to spend 2.5% of our budget on complete streets. This year, we are proposing to do that all with our bicycle and pedestrian plan. And so that will encompass that. I believe it's just over $28,000. I believe that was it. So if there are questions, I'm happy to, oh, here we go. So today we're at May 22. We're presenting this draft UPW PTU. If you vote to release it for public comment, we are aiming to have a public comment meeting on June 5. This will be right after the next Greater Lowell Vision Zero public forum. The public comment period will go through June 12, and then we'll present this final UPWP and any public comments and how we resolve them at the next meeting of the MPO.
Yeah, just a quick question. So on the de-obligated PL funds, it seems like it's documented here, which is good. Just taking an example though, like it says that 23,856 of it will be used on task 2.2 is, and this is a very in the weeds question, but
Yeah.
I'm just curious, like, is that amount going into staff time or is it like a discrete amount that's?
That would be a discrete amount for a content management based service or a web provider to transition. It's kind of a year one startup cost to transition to a new website. The cost year over year would be incorporated into direct costs in future UPWPs, but would be substantially lower. There's just like a higher lift, and that would give us the accessibility and translation that was one of the things that was noted in our federal certification review.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, just process wise, I think it would be good to, like, if you send the request letter for the use of these funds, like, you know, within the next week or so.
Sure.
We can work to get something confirmed before the UPWP is endorsed next month, so that way it doesn't have to say request in the document, it can just say like, this is the use of this, this source, so it's just set in stone and we don't have to go through any, you know, approvals when it's in place next fiscal year, so.
Great.
Yeah, we can work on that during the comment period and then just show, again, just so it's real in the document and not proposed.
Okay.
So that was one thing, and then, so this is set up to show like each subtask. Like the budget is on the entire task, like for task 3, like tasks, like it's not broken up. Is that the same in the current UPWP or is that like a change?
So in the current UPWP, I believe the budget is, it's kind of just, it's described in a table at the beginning of the task area. And it is broken out by line, just like it is in here. It's just in this document, it's at the end of the task. Yeah, but we do show it by subtask as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this has it by subtask.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
oh, great, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is part of the document as well.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I see, okay, great.
It might have printed out really small. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome, okay. Other questions? All right, seeing none, I'll ask for a motion and second to release this 2025 UPWP out for public comment.
So moved.
So moved. Oh, second then.
Okay, all right, motion having been made and seconded, go ahead and call the roll.
All right, Derek Cravat,
Yes.
Brian Fallon,
Yes.
Jane Wellman,
Yes.
Pat Wojcik,
Yes.
Karen Pulio,
Yes.
Wayne Janess,
Yes.
motion approved.
All right, so everyone,
Thank you.
and great job of getting the draft together. I know it's a lot of work each year, so we'll work with you during the comment period.
Yeah.
The items we mentioned, we'll move on to the next item, which is Transportation Improvement Program Amendment 3.
Yes, so I'll talk on this one. Hello, everyone. My name is Blake Acton, Transit Planner at NMPO. So this is an action item to finalize and endorse Amendment 3 for federal fiscal year 2024 through 2028 Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP. This change concerns the change for a specific project, that is project number 609035. That project is programmed for fiscal year 2024. And the title of the project is the rehabilitation of Boston Road in Westford, which is to reconstruct a 1 mile section, approximately 1 mile section of Boston Road in Westford, from the town common to the I-495 southbound ramps. And this amendment involves the increase of the cost of the project by about $5 million, which increases the cost from 10 million to about 15 million. And on April 24th, at the previous board meeting, the board voted to release this amendment for a 21-day public comment period. And that public comment period has closed since. And we did end up receiving one public comment during our virtual public meeting, which NMCOG staff held on May 15th at 5:30 p.m. Virtually via Zoom. And we had one attendee at that public meeting, and that was John Rockwell, a project manager from TEC. He decided to come to the meeting to answer questions about the project from the public, and also just talk about more generally the reasons behind the increase of the cost of the project. He talked about that the original budget for the project was established in 2021 when the project was at 75% design, and that most of the increases probably due to inflation since then, since there's been quite a bit of inflation and increase in construction costs since 2021. He also talked a little bit about that there will likely be some kind of excess excavation material or soil that might potentially be contaminated on the site, and that will probably have to be tested and disposed of, and that was not in the original budget. He also talked about the expanded stormwater requirements and potentially handling of invasive species, just kind of a few additional things that were not in our original document to kind of help provide a little bit more transparency to what's going on with the project. And so upon completing the public comment period and holding the virtual public meeting, the NPO has satisfied its public participation requirements for this amendment. And any questions or comments from board members, I will hand it back to the chair.
Blake, any questions?
I do have a question about what you just mentioned about the hazardous materials that have to be assumed to be present. If it turns out they're not, will that lower the price?
I think what John explained is that the cost includes like maximum contingency, like assuming it is contaminated. So if it's not contaminated, I'm assuming it would cost less money, in which case then the project may end up costing less than the value, but that is just sort of based off what we know. We don't know for sure.
I can speak a little to this item.
Sure.
So at this point, in the project's design and what the needs are for the project, since it is a final design, they know that there will need to be off-site soil removal, and the soil itself will be classified as hazardous soil.
Whether it is or not?
Do you know a little more about what the determination is on why we're seeing more of these in projects statewide?
Yeah, I think it's more, like you said, it's more to do with where you take the soil. So they're really being careful about where they stack the contaminated soil. So there's something that is going on, they're gonna need to treat it. If it was hazardous, then testing.
So they're gonna do the testing after they take it to this location that's gonna take the disposal. I guess I'm just, confused about, it is a significant increase, obviously. It looks like a lot of it is related to that. I mean, they find out, that it's not contaminated, obviously they think it's somewhere different than if it is contaminated.
I think what we're finding with projects is that unless tests are performed on all soil that's removed as part of a project, it cannot be, moved on site, and you would have to test every bit of soil that goes through. So the solution, unfortunately, is to take it off-site, and out of state because there's no safe place to contaminated soil in Massachusetts. So this is something that we're seeing affect a lot of projects, and it's unfortunate that it's making projects cost more money. In this circumstance, the statewide, the funding for this, cost increase is largely coming on the statewide side and not adversely affecting the regional target.
Just a request that if you're at the end of the table, if you could speak up a little, because I think people on the Zoom are having a hard time hearing.
Yeah, it's a little hard to hear on the conversation. How many borings have been done on the site?
Looks like we might need to get back to you on that one.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll coordinate with the team, the project team more closely and get a response. And
We ran into this in Reading, on a project that we're doing here with contaminated soils, and we had to ship them to Canada. And it was $1 million or so in excess cost, and it just had to all go. So I understand what you're talking about. And we had done some borings, and as you got in there, it was like, oh, it had been a landfill at one point, and so that was part of the issues. We had a lot of old bottles and stuff like that, and cyanide. So, okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I think I agree with Pat's assessment. It's a 50% increase in cost, so it's certainly a concern. And my concern is that won't be enough in the end, but hopefully there, with the maximum, what's that, 20% contingency on there? Do you think?
Yeah,
Okay.
and we can also look into that question more too. If it's not contaminated, right, what happens with the cost? Because I don't know if that's really, that's something that we can get a better answer on as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
I have one quick question, which is just probably comes from a point of ignorance more than anything else. But this is the first one of these projects I've really seen and looked at. And is this $15 million for a mile of road? Is that an expected value, or is this particularly high? And if it is particularly high, I'm just curious as to what drives the cost to do this particular project.
I can speak a little to it just based on an assessment of the funding color, and what I understand about the project is it's not only a rehabilitation of the existing roadway as it is currently. There's a design directive that if we can integrate a complete street facility or complete street features into roadway projects, that we try to. Anytime you see TAP or CMAC, it usually indicates that there's a feature, whether it's a bicycle and pedestrian accommodation, a transit facility improvement. I'll defer to the district for staff in the room if they can comment more to the features with a specific project. But what we do see when we have these types of roadway rehabilitation projects that integrate all of these new features is it's going to drive up the cost. It ultimately becomes a higher scoring project and it's better for multiple road users, which is consistent with long-range envisioned planning goals from Northern Middlesex region. But that it's not that uncommon to see a mile roadway project escalate to this in cost, unfortunately.
And I wish this was a District 4, because I can speak more to it.
I can speak a little bit to it. This project serves, it's on the Boston Road in Westford. It's a major connector to Route 495. It's highly traveled. It's one of our most traveled roads in our community. They've had speed issues. Recently, the town of Westford has adjusted the speed limit on the road per 17C with MassDOT's approval. They've reduced the speed to 25 miles per hour. So there'll be some traffic calming that'll be part of this project in addition to multimodal accommodations. So it's a big project. It's right in the town center, which is highly traveled. So it's a big project for the community.
And I can certainly reach out to the project manager and get any more detail that anybody needs, contact everybody.
There's one more thing I can add, just because Wayne wasn't here at the last meeting. The primary purpose that we originally were given for the increase of the cost was that the original cost included closing the road and having an alternative travel way, and that with this change, the road is going to remain open to facilitate one-way alternating traffic. So keeping the road open and sort of working on it in phases like that is a major factor in the cost increase as well.
Understood. And as was previously mentioned, this is a busy stretch, and I do understand this is a spot I've traveled through frequently, so I do understand that. And thank you for that. I was just curious and appreciate the detail.
Thanks, everyone. All right, so with that, I'll ask for a motion and second to endorse this amendment as presented, with the understanding that we'll of course get some more details on all the items discussed, but for now we do need to vote to endorse. So I'll ask for a motion and second.
So moved.
Second.
All right, thank you both. Go ahead and call the roll.
Derek Cravat,
Yes.
Brian Fallon,
Yes.
Jane Wellman,
Yes.
Pat Roaches,
Yes.
Karen Pulio,
Yes.
Wayne Janess.
Yes.
Motion approved.
All right, thanks, everyone. Move on to the next item, which is the next transportation improvement program for fiscal years 2025 to 2029.
Did you want me to present? Okay, yeah. Actually, can I have a copy of this? Thank you. Thank you. So this is, we presented the draft tip to you in our meeting last month. Since then, we did hold a public hearing where we had participation by one resident of Lowell. And there were a number of comments regarding, that were sort of maybe questions about how a TIP project is measured, I think related to the transportation evaluation criteria that we apply when we look at projects. We have noted for this 25 to 29 TIP, we did not score any new projects because there were no new projects. And so part of one of the things that we have proposed to do as part of our next UPWP, and this is addressed in the public comment summary, is that we're looking at updating our transportation evaluation criteria because they haven't been updated in a while. And we also want them to reflect the goals of Envision 2050. So they may be tooled going forward. And they may be retooled in a way, and we would invite Mr. Jennings to participate in that process, a way of bringing a little bit more, bringing alternative methods alternative methods into the process for determining how a project is scored. And that would ultimately, it isn't going to reflect backward on prior projects, but it will be something that we can use in future projects going forward. And we can also start to score some of those state projects that affect our region as well, which I don't believe we've done in this tip or in a recent one. We also received a number of comments from MassDOT as part of the tip review checklist, and we have gone through and addressed those. They were all pretty much either, I think, really scrivener's errors or issues that we were able to address through updating tables or formatting. I'm trying to think if there's anything that really fundamentally changes the document. Oh, the main thing, sorry, this is important. Our prior safety or our performance measure targets, PM1, was out of date or wasn't reflective of the statewide goals, and it was not reflecting the performance measures that the MPO had adopted. And so staff worked with Chris Clem at MassDOT to make sure that we are using the appropriate PM1 targets, and so those are reflected in the updated TIP document. That was probably the most substantial change that was made to this. With the addition of some additional project lists, the MBTA project list, the statewide project lists, and making sure that we have an updated STIP investment report included.
I think there was one interregional project that may have been in
Burlington, Tewksbury,
yeah,
or Burlington,
Route-
Tingsboro.
Route 3.
Yes.
There was a Route 3 project that's between the Boston MPO region as well as the Northern Middlesex region that is now reflected in the STIP investment report for the final document.
Yeah, and so you can see that on the side is printed out sideways here, but you can see that it's about halfway into the stack of paper here. I would say around page 50 something.
Appendix.
Yeah, also in the appendix.
That's statewide funded, it's not using additional target funding.
Yeah, it's using state funds. But those are the comments that we received. And at this point, it would be up to the MPO to choose to vote to adopt this, at which point we would work with our state partners to have this be set up to become our official transportation improvement program for 2025 through 2029.
Any questions?
Yeah, I do have a question. On page 20, where it has a list of the programs on the tip, and I'm sure that's what the representative from Rep. Elliott's office is here about on project 612535. It says it's approved, but it doesn't have a proposed tip year. It looks like it's one of the few that doesn't have a proposed tip year. And I guess if you could explain, what that means, that what status it is and where it's gonna go.
Sorry, that is in the, that was in the transportation evaluation criteria. Let me actually look and see.
What is the name of the project?
The name?
For improvements under 3A. Is that one?
Yes, that's it.
Princeton Technology Drive. Yeah. That project was programmed in 2024. It has not advanced in design, so currently it hasn't been programmed. I think that's where it is. It doesn't have a year. Project.
So it was on 2024 and then it was removed, is that?
It was only 24 to 28 step,
Okay,
but design is not advanced on the project. It's still only at an approved status. Between that and fiscal constraint challenges with the regional target, there wasn't funding availability for it to be funded this cycle. And the recommendation at tip readiness days back in February was that the project could be programmed in an out year, but with the funding realities and the scenarios presented to the MPO board a couple meetings ago, that one unfortunately was unable to be programmed at this time. The recommendation from MassDOT would be for the town and the designer to continue to advance progress on the project, so it remains a solid candidate for programming in the future too.
okay, so when it says approved, that means it's less than 25%, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, I wouldn't agree with you, that looks like you had it approved. Okay.
Thank you, Matt.
Other questions? Right.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Jane. So is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, motion having been made and seconded, go ahead and call it.
Right, Derek Cravat,
Yes.
Brian Fallon,
Yes.
Lynn Wellman,
Yes.
Pat Wolchus.
Yes.
Karen Pulio,
Yes.
Wayne Janess,
Yes.
motion approved.
All right, thanks everyone, and congrats on the successful tip, and looking forward to working with you to maintain it in October. We'll move on to the next item, which is the SS4A Vision Zero. Or, yes, yeah, Safe Streets and Roads for All.
I have to drop off, folks. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you so much. Great work.
Can everyone see the screen? Okay. Awesome. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Jessica Belanger. I'm the Transportation Mobility Specialist at NMPO. And today is the Phase 3 update for the Greater Lowell Vision Zero plan. This is a follow-up to the March meeting where I provided a Phase 2 update. This project is partially funded under the US DOT Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program. The SS4A grant program provides grants for local, regional, and tribal communities as part of a systemic approach to preventing deaths and serious injuries from our nation's roadways. On the agenda today, I will be discussing Vision Zero, and Vision Zero is a growing concept rooted in the belief that serious injuries and fatalities are preventable, and that we can identify methods to eliminate fatalities and serious injuries through a new approach to traditional planning. Today, I'll provide an overview of the planning process for the Greater Lowell Vision Zero plan development. I'll review the purposes of the plan, and then I'll provide some quick highlights on what to look at when you review the draft plan document. This slide covers the purpose of the plan. The first reason why we're completing our regional safety action plan is to access future funding under the SS4A grant program for our 9 communities in our region. This is also to maintain consistency with federal and state safety goals and programs. MassDOT Highway Safety Action Plan of 2023 has a Vision Zero commitment outlined. This is to, today we'll be requesting a regional commitment to achieving Vision Zero by the year 2050. And this plan will provide a clear direction for implementation of our Vision Zero practices in our region.
And the slides aren't advancing on the Zoom.
Oh, sure.
They might be looking at,
Yeah, we just see your, not the presenter view, but the actual, like, just
so I think you're sharing
slides.
the, yeah, you're sharing this page here.
Oh,
So when you go, if you hit present. Okay, and then go back to Zoom and reshare.
There we go.
That's better.
working? Awesome, good. So this slide displays the engagement activities that we've conducted as part of the plan. Some of the highlights are using MetroQuest, which is a crowdsourcing survey tool where residents were able to drop a pin in our region in areas of concern. We also used online tools like Nextdoor.com. We established an 8-member Vision Zero Advisory Committee to help support the development of the plan. We conducted 5 flyer distributions at local market baskets and engaged with local and state organizations such as the Lowell-based nonprofit, the Bike Connector, and also Mass Bike. Next slide. Since October of 2023, we have been working with WSP. They're a global consulting firm that has been helping us with technical assistance for our regional safety action plan. Creating a regional safety action plan is the first step in the SS4A program. The plan requires a data-driven approach that includes engagement, equity considerations, and actionable strategies to advance safety through behavioral, infrastructural, and operational activities. As part of this planning process, WSP worked with me to develop a high injury network that is using existing data. They created a high risk network, which is the predictive analysis, and all under the, for the purpose of developing a regional priority network. And the regional priority network will be used to eliminate future crash locations. The part of developing the high injury network is using a data-driven analysis tool, which employs new evidence models that allow state and local agencies to quantify safety impacts. And this is similar to how we measure impacts of environmental effects, traffic operations, and the life of pavement. Next slide. High injury network. So the high injury network, as part of this exercise, WSP developed a technical analysis where they looked at MassDOT impact portal data from 2018 to 2023. They reviewed the crashes in our region and assigned a weighting to the injury type by severity. On the map here, you'll see the high injury network overlaid with our equity areas. On this map, the high injury corridors are highlighted. The equity concerns that we looked at for the purpose of this plan were seniors, low income, individuals without a car, limited English proficiency, and race. On the screen, you'll see the high risk network. This is a forward-thinking predictive analysis, and the purpose of this is to understand where crashes are most likely to occur. The risk factors used for this were average daily traffic, the number of lanes, posted speed limits, equity areas, and pedestrian exposure. A weighting was added to this to assess each risk factor. Together, those two networks establish a priority network. And this was created to help identify the most critical intersections and corridors throughout our region. And they were ranked by respective priorities, as shown on the matrix. The deliverables for this plan will include a list of projects throughout our region, our high injury network and high risk network, which we'll be able to use for future planning projects, region-specific equity indicators that we've worked to develop with the consultant. And then in the future, we'll have an integrated web-based dashboard on our website that our communities will be able to measure their progress towards goals in the plans and observe when projects are completed. So today we're requesting that we can release the plan for public comment. And I wanted to share some highlights of what to look for when you're looking at the actual plan document. And you'll see that we've identified 2 to 3 projects in each of our 9 communities. There's a slightly higher number that have been identified in the city of Lowell due to the number of crashes. And there's also a list of recommended countermeasures. The countermeasures are specific roadway treatments that can be used and are recommended by Federal Highway to make our roads a little bit safer. We also have some actionable strategies that are in the plan, and these are tactical goals or solutions that we've provided on how we can improve road safety, and those are typically through behavioral and operational practices. Next. This is a sample of the project identification maps that WSP developed. Last month, we held a municipal briefing where we shared our preliminary project list with our communities. We also conducted an analysis where we reviewed the project list against the programmed TIP projects and also recently completed TIP projects to make sure that we weren't overlapping any of our efforts. There we go. Okay. Countermeasures. These are the list of recommended strategies that Federal Highway has for countermeasures. WFP will be assigning countermeasures to the projects that they've identified based on region-specific conditions. You'll notice in the top left that speed cameras has been X'd out. They're not legal in the state of Massachusetts, so WSP will not be recommending those as part of the plan. Each countermeasure addresses at least one safety focus area, which could be speed management, intersections, roadway departures, etc. The document will also include actionable strategies, and this plan will serve as a living document. The identified strategies will be used to advance our safety planning and support our future transportation efforts. These strategies include accountability, safety, data-informed decision-making, and maintaining and building infrastructure. These strategies will be specific, include timelines, and serve as a guide for our future planning efforts. On the screen, you'll see the project timeline, which many of you are familiar with and have seen this before, but where the person on the bike is, that's where we are right now. Slide. And these are the important upcoming dates. Today, we're requesting approval to release the draft for public comment. Public comment period will run from today to June 12th. And there's a hybrid public meeting that will be held on June 5th. And in July, we will return to the MPO to address any comments that we receive and request endorsement. And I'd just like to note that the endorsement would include a public commitment to achieving Vision Zero by the target year of 2050.
Thanks, Jessica. Any questions? Yeah, I just want to say this is really great. It's a great resource, not only for communities, but also I feel like MassDOT, when we look at Project Universe and projects in the region, so well done on the plan. I just want to say on the automated enforcement piece, I do know that a handful of communities are piloting technology for that. And I think the policy is going in the direction of eventually having something pass that would allow it. So I know insofar as it helps to note which locations might be good candidates if the policy does change. I just wanted to throw that out there for consideration, something to consider. Because it seems like just based on what I've heard, it's going in that direction. It's just there's kinks to work out with privacy and other things. But I think there is a desire to get that passed. So
awesome.
Just wanted to check.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
I had a question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Great job, Jessica. I really like
Thank you.
the presentation and the work you've done. So I see the NOFO for planning and demonstration grants is still open for fiscal year 24. Will the MPO or NMCOG be planning to apply for that? Or is this, or is this complete? Is this plan complete?
So Justin, this is Kelly. We are looking at applying for planning and demonstration grant funding to really look. One of the things we proposed in our UPWP is a series of road safety audits, and this plan will directly inform those. And so we're intending to apply for for the August deadline for planning and demonstration grants, so that and in combination with that, additional scope so that we can do more education and outreach and engagement. Because I think there's a lot of discussions and work that we need to do with our communities, just to really emphasize the importance of safety. And so tying those things together with road safety audits, that's what we're intending to apply for. So Jessica's done a lot of really good work with our municipal liaisons, holding a meeting to look through the top priority projects. And that's really what's going to inform selections of those top projects that we'd be looking for funding for.
And so communities can apply for implementation grants based on this plan?
That's correct. So, a requirement for the implementation grant is that you have to upload a copy of an endorsed regional safety action plan. So by developing a regional safety action plan, our communities will be eligible for hopefully the next round of implementation grants. The deadline for the implementation grants this time around was May 16th, so we just missed it, but next fiscal year, hopefully.
Okay, great, thank you. Good job.
Thank you.
So I just have a question about the timeline. Since the public comment period is gonna end before the June MPO meeting, is the reason why you're waiting till July to bring it back for endorsement?
To allow WSP time to incorporate the comments.
Oh,
So the public comment period will end on June 12th. We have a public comment meeting the week before that on June 5th. So we're gonna come back to the MPO in July so that we have time to put it in final layout and address all of the comments.
Okay, because I heard you say something about an August deadline for submitting for a grant, and you needed to have an approved one. I mean, if it was approved in June, it would give communities a little bit longer, or is that something different?
So the month of May is the SS4A implementation deadline. We missed that because it was on May 16th, so the plan wasn't endorsed or finalized. In August, there is a deadline for a planning and demonstration grant that Kelly was just speaking about, and we are eligible to apply for that currently.
But that's separate from an implementation grant.
Yes, so the implementation is construction dollars, planning and demonstration is activities.
Okay.
Right, and the only thing this planning document makes you eligible for are the implementation grants, right, which will be next May, right? Okay,
Yes.
okay, yeah, that's good, good clarification.
Thank you.
Jenny?
Well, I just really wanted to say thank you. I just think it's an excellent document. And I also want to recognize Joel Anders from WSP and all of his team's effort on this project. Really excited about it and definitely enthusiastic about the next steps. I think we all are. I know that there's been, especially when we were applying for this, there was, a readiness to proceed with the actual implementation. So we're almost there. We're ready to go as well, and we're ready to work with our communities to help get there as well. There is actually just a quick comment in the chat. If somebody in the room there could clarify the public comment period and the public meeting date for the UPWP and Vision Zero, could that just be announced one more time?
Yes.
Please.
So the public hearing or the public meeting for Vision Zero is at what time on the 5th?
June 5th at 6.
It's at June 5th at 6 o'clock. It's scheduled for an hour and a half. And I've also scheduled the public comment hearing for the UPWP to be at 7:30. So that would be right after that meeting. We didn't want to conflict with that meeting in case there were people who wanted to attend both. But we also need to get these meetings in advance of the close of the public comment period.
Ms. Kelly, other questions? Now I'll ask for a motion in a second to release the Safe Streets and Roads for All Greater Lowell Vision Zero plan out for public comment.
So moved.
Second.
All right, go ahead and call roll.
Right, Derek Pravat,
Yes.
Brian Fallon,
Yes.
Jane Wellman. Oh, sorry, she had to leave, sorry, Pat Wojcik,
Yes.
Karen Pulio,
Yes.
Wayne Jeunesse,
Yes.
motion approved.
All right, great. Thanks, everyone. Jessica.
Thank you.
Move on to our next item, which is just other business. Is there any other business?
I did want to invite, we do have a staff member from Representative Elliott's office here, Stephanie Barr. I know she had potentially a comment, there we go. And she was unable to join during the public comment period,
Okay.
so,
Oh, yes, go ahead.
yeah.
Yep.
Oh, sorry,
Hi,
could we
thank you
switch
so
back?
much, and sorry that I was not able to comment earlier on. Rep. Elliott is in formal session, so I'm here on his behalf, and I appreciate your willingness to hear public comments, and hearing your plan moving forward. It has been really great. I just wanted to add, we've had a lot of constituents send concerns in regarding Route 3A and Princeton Boulevard area, specifically the East Richardson Road intersection. And they've requested safety signalization be added there. I just wanted to make sure that that was noted during this meeting. I do know that we'll have a follow-up meeting regarding that, but I thank you for your time, and I'll leave it at that.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie.
Okay.
We'll definitely take note of that and work with you on next steps there. Yep. Any other business or comments?
If I could just add, we have talked in this group about At Home in Greater Lowell. We have our next public meeting for At Home in Greater Lowell on June 4. It's at the Lowell Senior Center from 4 until 6 o'clock p.m. This is an important meeting because at this meeting, we're taking what we've heard from our prior public meeting and from our survey, and we're really going to be talking through the goals of the plan and brainstorming or workshopping with people at that meeting, various recommendations for housing, transit-oriented development, connections with economic development at that meeting. And so we just want to make sure people are invited. I'll include an invitation or an RSVP link with the follow-up materials for this meeting, but I wanted to make sure it was mentioned here. It is something that we have been working kind of in cooperation with our Unified Planning Work Program on, just to understand the connection between transportation and housing. So please, June 4 to 6 p.m.
Thanks, Kelly. All right. With that, we'll move on to adjournment. I'll ask for a motion and second to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, without objection, we're adjourned. So thank you, everyone. And
Thank you all.
See you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good job, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.